Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning. I have my coffee ready, which is brew right here. How's everyone doing? I hope well. I have been up working this morning. I'm pleased to report that I think, it's not sure yet, I'm going to be working on this today and tomorrow. I think, though, it looks like the Christmas story is going to happen because I was getting into it and it's looking like it's going to shape up. I want to have at least a complete draft done, the complete first draft done by tomorrow night. And if I can do that, then it's going to happen. And I think but it's looking like at the moment that it is. It's looking like that's a reasonable timeline, which is great because I have been trying to get a story out for Christmas for years, and this is just the time when I can finally, I have enough time to actually do it. This is a hard deadline. In order to get it done, I got to do it now because I want people to have the book for Christmas. I want people to be able to have it for Christmas, which obviously means it's going to come out before Christmas. So, but I'm very pleased to report that it's looking good at the moment. It's looking good at the moment. We will see how things continue to play out. Let's see. Good morning, Daniel. Good morning. Good morning, Mike. Good to see you. Good morning, Sable and James and Stray. Good morning. Good morning. And Robert. Lots of people here this morning. I can't believe that it is Friday again. It's Friday and September or approaching the end of September. It's terrible. It's terrible. Oh, Sable, I'm actually home sick from work today. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Good morning, Lynn. Let's see. And Keith, good morning. Good morning. Robert reporting in here, unique PC generation, NPC party generation functional. Very good progress. Makes the game more fun when there's somebody to talk to. Oh, that does sound cool. NPC party generation functional. That's pretty neat. This sounds like it's going to be epic. All right, so let's see. We got several things going on this morning. I want to point out that as far as Goodnight Sword goes, because we're going to see, it's going to be a lot to do because we're going to launch Goodnight Sword and hopefully a Christmas story, really close to one another. But I realized that I didn't have the Goodnight Sword link, the new Goodnight Sword link in the description. So now it's there. Somebody commented on that. Yep, the Discord link is right here. And then here is a link to Goodnight Sword. Let me bring that up. Because if you would like a free copy of Goodnight Sword, I have it for you, the free digital copy. Let's see. Right here. So if you would like a free copy of Goodnight Sword, this is my children's book, the first book that's out in the Tales of Rabavania. You can get a free ebook of it right now if you've got a child who is about the right age for Goodnight Sword. It's obviously my takeoff of Goodnight Moon. So if you have a kid who is, any kid in your life who is about the right age for Goodnight Moon, but you'd rather them read something with a fantasy twist, who wouldn't want them to read Goodnight Sword? So if you'd like a free copy, you can come over here, pick up a free copy of Table Talk. I just saw that Stray. I just saw that comment go by. Thank you, Stray. If you want a free copy of Goodnight Sword, click this link, and it's also in the description. And then you pick up a free PDF. I will also do a drawing when the book will then come to Indiegogo for hard copies. So if you would like a hard copy, you'll be able to get it then. And then also I'll do a drawing probably here on the Morning Grind when the Indiegogo goes live, and you can get a free copy right there. Keith says, my son loves his physical book of Goodnight Sword. He wants to write a version of his own now. Oh, cool. Oh, I love that it's that inspirational. That is awesome. And I like pictures. I got a picture from Keith about with his son and the book. I've gotten a few of those, and those are always very special to have. So that is what's going on there. Stray also brings up that the Table Talk podcast, I noticed more people are coming in on the Table Talk or live stream podcast, whatever. Look. Link Stray just shared right here. Deep conversation in the Geekverse. 222. So another 20 subscribers came in yesterday. So I'm very excited about that. We are growing, we are building in a lot of different ways. All right, let's see. I've got today, I don't know how much longer we need to go with this book right here. It's inspired some great conversations, but I think by far this book right here, The Arms and Equipment Guide, this has been inspiring some really great conversations. We're looking at it from the perspective of kind of a historical document, because it's from 1991. So there's a lot of weird stuff in it. But we're kind of looking at what are they saying about this, and how did this kind of inspire our modern understanding and lack of understanding of medieval arms and armor. And I think the armor was probably the most interesting part of the book. There's a lot of different descriptions of weapons, but they're just kind of descriptions of weapons. Although we're going to come up on pole arms here, and pole arms are probably going to be an interesting discussion because there's so much variety. So we will see. Let's see. Oh, you're excited for the Christmas story. So this is becoming. I mean, it is the story of the birth of Christ. So I'm writing the story of the birth of Christ, but it is not. It's not a children's book. Robert says, next up is XP for discovering items, create artifacts and score, create monsters, and finally combat. Let's see. All right. But first we need to do our sip and breathe. And then also let me bring up, I should have done this already. Bring up the War of Art.
In my guts.
Whoop, nope.
I afford it the utmost respect because I know it can defeat me on any given day.
Sorry, that's the audiobook. Let's see. All right, so now here we go. So let's breathe and sip. Everybody got your coffee this morning or whatever your favorite beverage is? Got this? Here we go. Do it with me. 2 deep breaths in, breathe, then sip. Stray reminds us. 2 deep breaths in, complete exhales, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage. Here we go. And sip. And there we go. So let's go over to our morning reading, which is from the War of Art. We're going through the War of Art over here. This is the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It is a fantastic book, and it has short little sections that are perfect for reading in the morning. So now we go to Book 1, Resistance, Defining the Enemy. The enemy is a very good teacher, according to the Dalai Lama. Resistance's greatest hits. The following is a list, in no particular order, of those activities that most commonly elicit resistance. The pursuit of any calling in writing, painting, music, film, dance, or any creative art, however marginal or unconventional. 2, the launching of any entrepreneurial venture or enterprise for profit or otherwise. 3, any diet or health regime. 4, any program of spiritual advancement. 5, any activity whose aim is tighter abdominals. 6, any course or program designed to overcome an unwholesome habit or addiction. 7, education of every kind. 8, an act of political, moral, or ethical courage, including the decision to change for the better some unworthy pattern of thought or conduct in ourselves. 9, the undertaking of any enterprise or endeavor whose aim is to help others. 10, any act that entails commitment of the heart, the decision to get married, to have a child, to weather a rocky patch in a relationship. 11, the taking of any principled stand in the face of adversity. In other words, any act that rejects immediate gratification in favor of long-term growth, health, or integrity. Or, expressed another way, any act that derives from our higher nature instead of our lower. All of these will elicit resistance. Now, what are the characteristics of resistance? Oh, let's do this. They're short. Resistance is invisible. Resistance cannot be seen, touched, heard, or smelled, but it can be felt. We experience it as an energy field radiating from a work-in potential. It's a repelling force. It's negative. Its aim is to shove us away, distract us, prevent us from doing our work. Resistance is internal. Resistance seems to come from outside ourselves. We locate it in spouses, jobs, bosses, kids. Peripheral opponents, as Pat Riley used to say when he coached the Los Angeles Lakers. Resistance is not a peripheral opponent. Resistance arises from within. It's self-generated and self-perpetuated. Resistance is the enemy within. All right, those are our passages for the day. We must every day overcome resistance, and get our work done, whatever it is. Whatever it is, we have to overcome it. Oh, Stray says my new no, not Stray. Sable says my new writing project is already encountering resistance. We have to make sure that yes. Well, that's why we're here every morning. Sable says I will not allow it to beat me again. That I'm not allowing this Christmas story to beat this Christmas story has encountered resistance for many a year. Actually, I wrote it for the first draft. The first time I wrote it, I wrote the complete thing as when I was in high school, and it was the genesis of the idea for Theophany. It's not in Theophany. It's not part of the Theophany canon. This is a direct retelling. It's a retelling of the traditional story of the birth of Christ, but from the angel's perspective. Then later I went on and had the idea for Theophany. Now I'm kind of using some aspects of Theophany to color the Christmas story. So it's not in Theophany, but it was the original genesis of the story idea. and the whole thing was written when I was in high school, but it's never actually been published and gotten out. But now I'm basically having to rewrite the thing because it's been so long since I've looked at it. And like, who in the world wrote sentences like sentences are written in this story? Requires a lot of editing. But it's been years since, I'm thinking, I need to release that one Christmas. I need to release that one Christmas. I need to release that one Christmas. So provided I can get it done, get it drafted by Saturday, then it will get started. So hopefully you and I both say we'll get this done. James says, I really like these daily readings. I do too. Keith says, the only blue book I own for AD&D is the Catacomb Guide, and it's a fun read. Oh, I have the Catacomb Guide, but I've never really gotten into it. It was brought up on in the comments on the other video yesterday that the Castle Guide is another one. And yeah, we've looked at the Castle Guide briefly on this channel before. And I remember liking it as well at the time, and it's okay. It's okay. We could go look at it. If the Catacombs Guide is good, that might be a good one to go to next. Let's see. Sable says, sounds like you came up with something and it went into your compost of the imagination. Is now coming back in a different form, just like the Robert Olin Butler describes. Yes, yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. I realized, yeah, because there's a lot from the structure that needs to be written in here, rewritten and fixed, but then also from like the sentence, the sentences need to be rewritten and cleaned up. Also, the structure needed to be improved. That's no surprise. We've talked a lot about structure, and originally the story did not include Epiphany, and I realized that it needed to include Epiphany. So basically a second half is being written for it. Because I stopped the original story when I wrote it in high school. It stopped with the wise men seeing the star, and then they were going, I was expecting that the progression to find Christ would be a long one, so they just see the star because it just takes place at Christmas, and doesn't go into Epiphany. But now I realize that in order to have conflict in the story, the kind of conflict that I want, it actually needs to go into Epiphany. Butler may be pretentious, but that doesn't mean that he's wrong. That's true. That's true. I think I like where I liked that best. The parts of that I did like. The From Where You Dream is what Sable is talking about. Is the part that seemed most analogous to me with what Stephen Pressfield is talking about in The War of Art. James says, once we've gotten through The War of Art, we should transition to a new material for daily readings. It should be a channel staple, in my humble opinion. Well, there are a couple of other Stephen Pressfield books. All right. So where are we? Okay. So we are now here at the Arms and Equipment Guide. Probably we'll look at pole arms. We'll probably go a bit faster through some of these sections, but we should look at pole arms because I've also got this. That's the Dungeon Master's Guide. The Player's Handbook for AD&D famously has a bunch of information on pole arms, which is funny. And we'll see how it's expanded here. So let's see. We had just gotten, so we were taking a look at, we were looking at the questionable flails yesterday. So we had just done that. Let's go over here. See, some of these like basic descriptions. So this is trying to be a generic reference. So, how much do you really need to know about a hand or throwing axe, javelins, harpoons, a knife, They actually say a lot about knives, actually. So let's see what the in-universe text says about knives. Though it seems as if a dagger and a knife may be very much alike, there are important differences. A knife is lighter than a dagger. Its shape does not allow it to be thrown as easily, which explains why the lighter knife has the same throwing range as a dagger. The knife causes only slightly less damage than the dagger. Both weapons have the same rate of fire. Rate of fire? Didn't we talk about firing bows the other day? I think that was on Table Talk. That might be the first time that I've ever heard that daggers and knives have a rate of fire. The dagger is less a tool and more of a weapon, while it can be argued the reverse applies to the knife. An adventurer of high station may wish to have a knife and a sword of similar design, both households housed in one scabbard. Such a thing is certainly considered a status symbol, definitely a mixed blessing. A big advantage of knives is they are found everywhere. Cooks, trappers, and hunters are but three occupations that routinely carry a knife. Perippin Furfoot, halfling adventurer and professional cook. We've got lances and then jousting lances. Jousting lances used in jousts of peace are the heaviest lances, weighing 20 pounds and measuring 13 feet long. These lances are fitted with a three-pronged head in order to prevent armor penetration. The prongs are short, blunt protections that emerge from this headpiece, as opposed to a sharp point. The lance is also known as a courtesy lance. In full tilt, a joust of war, the head is blunt. In a full tilt, a joust of war, the head is blunt and may actually cause fatalities. Okay, lasso. Mace and footman's mace. Are we saying that the footman's mace is again two-handed? The man catcher is always an interesting inclusion. So here is the man catcher right over here. I want a crossbow that shoots swords. I'm sure somebody's thought of that too. Stray says, I like the feeling of Heath being our cleric preacher. Like I said, it's the war of art. That would be our core religious text. Good morning, TSL Frontman. The dagger can cast magic missiles twice as fast as this knife. Oh, James is talking about writing a story set in the Bible. There's a lot that you can assume your reader understands, especially if you're talking about something that story is commonly known as the birth of Christ, which is a good thing to be able to do. Any novelty you write in it becomes immediately intriguing for how widely known and understood it is. Okay, so the man catcher. A man catcher is a polearm with a special function to capture an opponent without killing him. The weapon consists of a long pole with a set of spring-loaded sharpened jaws at one end. The victim is caught between the jaws, which then snap shut. The target, regardless of armor and other defensive devices, magical or otherwise, is treated as AC 10, though appropriate dexterity bonuses are allowed. If a hit is scored, the opponent is caught, losing shield and dexterity bonuses. In addition, the victim can be pushed and pulled around at the whim of the man catcher's wielder. While caught in the man catcher, the victim suffers 1d2 hit points of damage per round. There's a 25% chance the trapped character will fall to the ground. The victim may attempt to escape the grip of the man catcher by making a successful bend bars lift gates roll, but he suffers an extra 1d2 points of damage while breaking away. Well, that actually sounds pretty good. So what historical man catcher? Also known as a catch pole. was used as late as the 18th century. The European design consisted of a pole mounted with a two-pronged head. I'm just looking at Wikipedia at the moment. Each prong was semicircular in shape with a spring-loaded door on the front. This created an effective valve that would allow the ring to pass around a man-sized cylinder and keep it trapped. The catcher was used primarily to pull a person from horseback and drag him to the ground where he could be easily pinned. This is one of the few examples of less lethal pole arms. The design assumes the captured person wears armor to protect him against the metal prongs, which could easily hurt the neck of a person without armor. The man-catcher was also used to trap and contain violent prisoners. There are modern versions. A type of locking man-capture is available for staff at train stations and airports in China to capture and restrain individuals in a non-lethal way. So I wonder how much this was often used. So, okay, so it is something that exists. It seems like it would be late. Oh, okay, I figured somebody had to have YouTube videos on this too. Keith Crow says the creator for the YouTube channel I Did a Thing has 2 man-catcher videos. Lynn says man-catchers are no longer seen as much use outside of Sadie Hawkins' day races. TSL Frontman says you could cut or break such a device with a sword or mace, though. But from the perspective of the rules, this sounds like a pretty good deal. So if you have a man catcher, it says that you're going to be AC 10 against it. So if you've got somebody in a lot of armor with a low AC, it says that against this particular one, you're going to be AC 10. You do have a dex bonus, but that's going to make you like AC 8 or 9, as opposed to AC could be 1, 2, or 3, especially if they're heavily armored. So you're going to be fighting against AC 8, 9, or 10. And it says that if a hit is scored, then you're caught. Just flat out. If you're hit, you're caught. Suffering D2 points of damage per round. And the only way to escape, it says, is to make a successful bend bars, lift gates roll, but suffering an extra D2 points of damage when breaking away. I mean, so why, from just a rules perspective, you'd think that would be used a lot more. That almost seems game-breaking. Send a bunch of, it seems like an easy way to capture foes. So it's like, how long? Your bend bars lift gates roll is pretty difficult. I was just trying to find that. Where's that table that tells me that? I'm not sure. Well, but anyway, you would think that'd be in the beginning here. That may just be something that, well, let me look in the index. But that's done on a percentile if you're not familiar. And it's not easy to make. Some characters might not even be able to make it. Ben Bars, page 20. That's not on page 20. Well, whatever. Anyway, bend bars, lift gates, not easy to make. Let's see. Michael Cooper says, always reminded me of those poles used on animals. Yeah. They got like 3 or 4 people on a single person. There's not much an assailant can do. Yeah. Sable says, see, this kind of thing should be in 5e. A grapple weapon with reach would be a great addition. Or web spells. Yeah. Bend bars with a strength check. Was it I thought that it was definitely based off of strength. Yeah, this is not right. Let me just see if the internet says something about that. Bend bars, lift gates, AD&D table. AD&D revised hit table. Yeah, let's see. So yeah, this according to this may not be right. This is the kind of thing that I wanted. That kind of a thing that I remembered. So a strength of 8 or 9 has a 1% chance, according to this, if this is accurate. This is the kind of thing that I remembered. A strength of 8 or 9 had a 1% chance of bending bars or lifting gates. 10 or 11 a 2%, 12 or 13 a 4%, 4 to 15 is 7%. Up to 16, it was not until 16 you got 10%. 17 is 15%. 18 at 25%. So if you're somewhat normal strength, you've got less. It's less than rolling. I mean, less than a 5% chance. It's not done on a D20. It's a percentile. Keith says, I recall that in the AD&D Priest's Handbook, that was a weapon that pacifist priest could use. Actually, I don't know why the priest would not be using it now with a rule like that. Yeah. That's what I thought. So that seems overpowered, but I don't think I've ever encountered a man catcher or used one in AD&D. The Morning Star always kind of was a little bit controversial in its naming. So according to this, what is a Morning Star? The Morning Star is a wooden shaft topped with a metal spike head. Actually, I saw a picture over here. So this over here is supposed to be a Morning Star. That's a really thin shaft on that. The Morning Star is a wooden shaft topped with metal heads made up of a spiked iron sheath. Morning Stars have an overall length of about 4 feet. Some such weapons, they really like having weapons with long shafts in this. Morning Stars have an overall length of about 4 feet. Some such weapons have round, oval, or cylindrical shaped head with studded spikes. Extending from most Morning Stars, regardless of design, is a long point for thrusting. The weapon is designed to allow the wielder to inflict great damage with his swing. The weighted, spiked heads add to this ability significantly. Long-handled Morning Stars are used by foot soldiers, while short-handled versions are used by horsemen. But unless a footman also wants to be able to use a shield... It's a very popular weapon due to its effectiveness and simplicity of production. The Morning Star traces its ancestry back to the mace, which in turn traces its lineage back to the club. Hobgoblins, a race that takes great delight in inflicting pain, often use Morning Stars. Troglodytes use stone Morning Stars. Make a Morning Star out of stone. Morning Stars are clubs with a real nasty attitude. They can cause as much damage to a man as a longsword, probably because of them spikes. I hear tell the Morning Star was called a bludgeoning weapon as well as a piercing weapon, but tell me, have you ever seen a sharp spike hit someone at high speeds and called that bludgeoning? Suriel, cleric of Tyr. The Morning Star was derived from the Swiss Morgenstern, literally Morning Star, and was used during the 16th and 17th centuries, especially in England. The weapon had a perverse nickname as the Holy Water Sprinkler. The Morning Star was popular from the Middle Ages to the late 17th century, though its use continued among peasants and urban poor militiamen and gangs up until the 19th century. For some reason, I had... I knew somebody was going to say something like that. I knew when I said that. They really like having weapons with long shafts in this. For some reason, I got in my head somewhere that a morning star was a single-handed mason chain. A single-handed flail was often called a morning star. But a morning star. But I have no idea where I got that from. Did anybody else have that understanding? That was my understanding a long time ago. But then I was always reading things like this. So I don't know where that understanding came from. Wikipedia is reporting morning star is more like this. A morning star is any several medieval club-like weapons consisting of a shaft with an attached ball adorned with one or more spikes, each used to varying degrees a combination of blunt force and puncture to attack or kill or wound the enemy. Yeah, so this actually says right over here, a morning star left next to a ball and chain flail on the right. We do have, so let me, where does this come from? Right here. This is a photo of a monument in Poland. Okay. So that right there, that looks like a lot. Well, that looks like what we're talking about right here. So that's a morning star. See, I would just call that a mace, like a spiked mace. Now, these things, that's, they're no hard and fast categories, but I would say that is definitely a ball and chain flail right there. Yeah. So here's Wikipedia's illustrations of morning stars, the morning star heads. So that's clearly their understanding as well. They also reference this Morgenstern. Hopefully it's not referencing this book. No, Daily Life in the Middle Ages, 2001. Let's see. The morning star first came. So the term is often confused with the military flail, which typically consists of a wooden shaft joined by a length of chain to one or more iron-shod wooden bars. Heavy sword pommels have also been used as weights. However, there are few depictions of such ball and chain flail from the period, so this type of weapon appears to be uncommon. Well, here's the holy water sprinkler. From its resemblance as the aspergillum used in Catholic Mass, was a morning star used by English army in the 16th century and made by a series of professional smiths. One such weapon can be found in the royal armories as an all-steel head with 6 flanges forming 3 spikes each, reminiscent of a mace, but with a short, thick spike of square cross sections extending across the top. The term holy water sprinkler is also used to describe a type of military flail, this being the name of the French weapon in French. It was, according to popular legend, the favorite weapon of the King John of Bohemia, who was blind and could use it to simply lay about himself on all sides. Yeah, the Guten Tag is a similar weapon, like similar in structure here. So I have no idea where that. Okay, so where my understanding of that as a morning star came from. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Draco's bringing up the Guten Tag here. It was derived from this morning star, and it was a Flemish weapon. You could easily make an argument that morning star is the ultimate medieval weapon in the era of knights. Yep. Good day. The Guten Tag. I was actually thinking that, I mean, they're not hard to make. Like a Guten Tag would not be hard to make. And I was thinking that, what kind of equipment do you have to have around here to make one? And if you were trying to outfit a militia in the event of apocalypse and you're trying to outfit a militia, well, a Guten Tag would be a reasonable weapon to do that with. Okay, so much for the morning star. Now we do have the military pick here. The medieval military pick was a specialized weapon. It probably originated from the common mining tool. As armor grew heavier, the pick's form and function were soon adapted to specialized roles. This role was to penetrate the heavier armor types from chainmail up through full-plate armor. The military pick was a modification of a weapon called a martel de fer, a type of warhammer that had a hammer head balanced by a thick, curving, piercing fluke or crow's beak. The military pick consists of a heavy piercing flute mounted on a haft. The weapon might have either one or two flukes, and the haft might be spiked. The weapon is popular with knights and heavy foot soldiers of certain mercenary companies. Dwarves and gnomes are also fond of the weapon, and deep gnomes, in particular, use a great number of them. And of course, for some reason, once again, they like to do this. They distinguish between a footman's pick. The footman's version of this weapon has a longer shaft, up to 5 feet, enabling it to be wielded with 2 hands. The weapon weighs about, why don't they just call it one-handed and double-handed in all of these cases? But they always like to use footmen and horsemen's. The weapon weighs about 6 pounds and can be swung with great penetrating force. Whereas the horseman's pick is lighter, about 4 pounds, and has a shortened haft, about 2 feet, making it easier to wield from horseback. It's commonly used by knights and heavy mercenary horsemen who face more heavily armored opponents. The deep gnome's weapon is also of this lighter variety. So this says, in universe, races who particularly enjoy mining, such as gnomes, Svirfneblin, that's those deep gnomes, and dwarves, can usually be found with these weapons. They usually know how to use a pick both as a tool and as a weapon, though they will first use normal weapons if given a chance. Sometimes they have to wield these weapons against another race known as for its subterranean digging, and who also use the pick, and who sometimes they have to wield these as weapons against another race known for its subterranean digging, and who also use the pick as a weapon, the Dugar. That's Nelik the Gnome Sage. Then we get into polearms. How are we doing on time? Oh, yeah, okay. So we're going to get deep into polearms here. Let's do it. Well, all of these, the AD&D weights, that's another. AD&D probably contributed to the understanding of weapons as extremely heavy. But that seems to be something that has been common across more than just D&D. Even in GURPS, the weight of weapons in the basic set, and even in the 4th edition basic set, are really heavy. They've tried to deal with that by saying that the weapon also includes the weight there, also includes whatever you're carrying it in, like the sword with the scabbard or all of that. Lynn says the military pick can be used as a sort of seafood fork for opponents in full plate armor. All right, let's go to polearms. Also called staff weapons, polearms are defined as hafted weapons, edged weapons mounted on a short handle or on longer shaft wielded with 2 hands. The shafts are usually made of wood, though metal shafts sometimes exist. An alternate term for a polearm is a poleaxe, which is used to describe any weapon which has a metal head in a combination of an axe, beak, or hammer, mounted on a pole ranging from 4 to 6 feet in length. Pole is the contemporary word for a steel head mounted on a staff. Pole, P-O-L-L, is the contemporary word for a steel head mounted on a staff, and the term should not be confused with pole axe. Though descriptions of the various polearm types follow, there are certainly characteristics common to all polearms, such as outlined here. Polearms are an easy way to make polearms are easy to make and are used often by peasants and common foot soldiers. The polearm is a great equalizer for those troops who must often fight armored men on horseback. The polearms gives the wielder a long reach without exposing himself to the swings of a sword. Setting polearms to receive a charge grants the wielder an initiative bonus. That special rule. Hey, Zero the Blade. Polearms have special attachments. A primary use of the polearm is to allow warriors in the second rank to attack over the shoulders of the front rank. Oftentimes, a fighter with hand, weapon, and shield will team up with one using a polearm, and they will fight as a coordinated unit. That's very common in the SCA. Special optional rules for implementing polearm tactics may be found in the combat chapter of the Complete Fighter's Handbook. Might have to check that out. Gnolls and hobgoblins make it a point to carry polearms around. Obviously, there's no combat and tactics at this point. When was the Fighter's Handbook released? That was probably... It's probably one of the earlier ones. Fighter's Handbook was published in... Wait, what? No date? Oh, down here. 89. Fighter's Handbook was published in 1989. New combat rules include weapon proficiency slots, ambidexterity, style specialization, punching and wrestling specialization, martial arts, fighting styles, melee maneuvers, called shots. We looked at that. Hold attack. Parries, pins, pulls, trips, use of polearms. That's 71. Sap, shield punch, shield rush, shield punch, and shield rush. We talked about those. Those are in this book right here. Strike, thrust, surprise, and flash maneuvers. Whoa, Lord. Hit locations. We looked at that. Mounted combat. So mounted combat's also in here. There was a little bit in the D&D, actually a fair amount. There was a fair amount in the DMG. Didn't talk about missing. I was trying to find out why, armoring your mount. Use of polearms. Looks like it's a very small section. Let's see what use of polearms is. Yeah, I know. So this is one of the ones that you saw that. So here he is. If you're watching Greg Hatmaker. Oh, it has his address in it. His address and phone number. Huh. He scratched out because I bought this secondhand. This is one of the ones that I had to bring back from, or that I had, but then I had to buy on eBay again after the purge. So 71 says use of polearms. Polearms and any type of other weapon with long staff-like elements, quarterstaffs, lances, spears, etc., are good weapons to have when you're trying to pull and trip maneuver. You can pull trip someone at the maximum range of your weapon, in addition with no additional penalty to hit. You can pull trip moving animals with a polearm. This is at -6 penalty to hit if the animal is large, but you can't even try it on a large animal without some polearm of some sort. And finally, they are very effective for knocking riders off their mounts. With a man-catcher or polearm, though not with a quarterstaff, lance, or spear, you may attack a mounted rider and have a good chance of pulling him from his horse. The dexterity modifier listed above also applies to the rider's chance to stay mounted. Okay, not a whole lot there. Yeah, I know. I may attack the mounted rider, yeah. But pulling and tripping, it's talking about pulling and tripping. This maneuver is designed to knock an opponent down. When using the pull trip maneuver, the attacker announces his intention when it's his turn to attack. He describes how he's performing the maneuver to the GM, who may rule that it's impossible. If it is possible, though, the attacker rolls versus the target's AC as with any normal attack. The target then rolls D20 against his dexterity. If he succeeds, he stays on his feet. If he fails, he falls down. Modifiers to his dexterity include +6, the target was not moving, or -3, target was unaware of the attack. The pull trip maneuver is best performed on someone who is moving or unaware of you. A target who is standing still, not walking or running, and is aware of the attacker is very hard to knock down. Okay. Lynn says, I'm not seeing polearms as terribly practical weapons in the sort of close quarters that subterranean classes inhabit. Well, what about a spear? So gnolls and hobgoblins make it a point to carry such polearms often. A band of such creatures encountered carrying polearms will be knowledgeable in polearm tactics. Orcs favor halberds, pikes, and glaives. While the master weapons chart at the end of this chapter shows which polearms cause extra damage when set to receive a charge, any polearm can be used to receive a charge regardless of whether it causes extra damage. All right, this is the real way to use a polearm. All right, listen up, for I'm only going to say this once. I grow weary of seeing groups of bumbling amateurs running around with polearms, each person with a different type. One uses a halberd, the other one uses a pike, and still another has a guisarme volge, and he cannot even pronounce it, let alone use it. This is ridiculous. If you're going to use a polearm, use it correctly. Here's how. First of all, for the God's sake, try to get some idea of where your group is going. Are you going into the jungle or a dense forest? You are? Then why buy a polearm, you fool? You'll have no room to wield it, and more often than not, you'll wind up poking your comrade's eye out. Make sure the terrain suits the weapon. Next, once you know that destination justifies a polearm, each person should get the same type of polearm. The weapons vary with the speed in which they can be swung and the amount of space needed to wield the thing. Different polearms complicate what should be a simple operation. When you see an enemy charging at you, have all the polearm bearers line up in the front row with weapons set to receive the charge. In order to set to receive a charge, the wielder should stand sideways, leaning forwards. The left shoulder faces the oncoming foe. The polearm should be set at an angle with the head pointing away from the ground, facing up at the enemy. The end of the handle should rest against the instep of the right foot. Both hands should hold the pole firmly. You are now ready to receive a charge. Once the enemy impales himself on the blades, you cannot just pull out the staff weapon and begin hitting the creature. Your non-polearm wielding comrades behind you should begin throwing spells, hurling missiles, spears, whatever at the impaled foes. Try your best to keep the enemy on the blade and out of your reach. Now that's the way to use a polearm. It's a team effort that needs to be practiced often. Remember this, and perhaps it will save your life. That's Fiona the Ranger, daughter of Deirdre. D&D at Christmas just sounded like it. You'll poke your eye out. Michael says 3E did this much better. All pike, also known as just a pike and a Morris pike, corruption of Moorish. This is an infantry spear ranging from 16 to 22 feet in length. All heads are often leaf or lozenge shaped. The pole is a strong wood, such as ash. Many pike heads are made from 2 tongues of steel nailed down the sides of the shaft to prevent the head from being hacked off. The grip is often bound with cloth, and the butt capped in steel to prevent the shaft from splitting. The all pike has the dubious distinction of being the slowest polearm available. Add to it its mediocre damage against man-sized opponents, and one is left with a weapon of questionable value, except when used en masse on the battlefield, right? Which is why you would use it. The bardiche. Now, so what I was going to look at actually over here. Let's go over here first. Because this over here was so many people's introduction to polearms, right? Time and movement, notes on spells. Let's see. See, it's funny to me. So here, this right here. It's kind of funny to me that in just your basic handbook, the basic player's handbook in D&D, they talked a lot about different types of polearms and went to considerable trouble to illustrate them. I mean, these are pretty reasonable illustrations. They talk about the ranseur, the halberd, the glaive, the poleaxe, the guisarme, the spetum, the spetum, partisan, fauchard, volge, bec de corbin, which is my favorite polearm. One of these days, I'm going to get a bec de corbin. The lucerne hammer, the military fork, the spear, and the bardiche. And for some reason, this book went into a lot of detail on describing those, even though they don't make that much of a difference in the actual game as I remember. So let's going over here. Polearm over here. So they vary a little bit in how much they cost. Okay. They've got weights. They're got very heavy weights here. They're all size, but okay, what something costs, whatever, that's just within a few gold of each other. Very rarely in Dungeons and Dragons do I actually see somebody choosing a weapon based on its cost. Well, it's cheap, so I'm going to get it. And I don't have enough money to get something else. Weight heavy, if you're not worried about encumbrance, like so many people are, the weight doesn't come up. They're all large. Type, the type category is divided into bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. This indicates the type of attack made, which may alter the weapon's effectiveness against certain types of armor. See the optional weapon types versus armor rule in Chapter 9. Oh, really? I didn't remember that being in the main book. Let's see. I didn't remember punching and wrestling results being in this book either. Which one am I looking at? I'm looking at the PHP, right? Yeah, PHP. Yeah. So, oh no, weapon types versus armor modifier. So this is an optional rule in the AD&D PHP. Not all weapons perform the same. If they did, there'd be no need for the wide variety of weapons that exist. Only one form of each weapon type, the most useful one, would be used throughout the world. This is obviously not the case. Aside from the differences in size, weight, length, shape, certain types of weapons are more useful against certain types of armor than others. Indeed, the different armor and weapons of the world are the result of an ancient arms race. Each new weapon led to the development of a new type of armor designed to counter it. This led to new weapons, which led to new armor, and so on. In the AD&D game, weapons fall into basic categories listed on how they're used. The basic categories are slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning. Slashing weapons, okay, we know what they are. Oh, here it is. Weapon types versus... So table 52 over here lists the weapons versus armor modifiers applied to Thaco, if this optional system is used. To use this table, the actual armor type of the target must be known, in addition to the target's armor class. The bonuses of magical armor do not stack with the type, do not change the type of armor, only the final armor class. This system is used only when attacking creatures in armor. The modifiers are not used when attacking creatures with a natural armor class. So we got slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning, and we do have armor type. So they go through banded mail, brigandine, chain mail, field plate, full plate, our classic AD&D terminology. Leather armor, which includes padded armor and hides, it says. Plate mail, which includes bronze plate mail, ring mail, scale mail, studded mail, split. So full plate. So weapon type versus armor modifiers. This is applying to the attacker's Thaco. So pluses are bad. So full plate is supposed to be +4 against slash and +3 against piercing, no change against bludgeoning if you're using this optional rule. Here's, everybody will like this, the mail, chain mail, as they call it here. I hate saying that, but you have to say it when you're reading D&D stuff. Slashing is +2, piercing is +0, but bludgeoning is -2 when wearing chain. Brigandine is supposed to be +1 to slashing and +1 to piercing. So that would be a reason. I don't ever remember using that. I don't think that we ever did that. I didn't think it was in the core book, but obviously it was. So there's a reason. So if you are using that, then we've got differences in damage types, piercing, slashing. Some of them are bludgeoning. So, okay, that would be, if you're using that. Speed factor as well. And then damage to small and medium and large creatures. And of course, their damage is a bit different. Like the halberd is D10, whereas something, what is the Bec de Corbin? The Bec de Corbin is 1D8. Whereas a glaive is 1D6. I don't know how they're coming up with all these. I'm trying to distinguish them. So there's some variation in damage. The hook falchion is only 1D4, so some of these don't inflict a whole lot of damage. The Bardiche does 2D4, though. So anyway, so I guess if you're using your optional rules for armor modifier, then there's that's there. And they've got a little bit difference in speeds, but not a whole lot. So it's kind of, to me, that's they give a whole lot of detail here, which it sounds like we're about to go in even more detail. But for they spend a fair amount of page right here going over the different types of pole arms, which is so many people's introduction to them. Although you would think it could have been simplified. But apparently people saw somebody who was making AD&D saw all these different types of pole arms in museums and was like, oh, we need rules for every one of them. Bardiche. Oh, you're also a fan of the Bec de Corbin? Yeah, pole arms are best working formations. Can't see your average, especially if it's an average D&D party of like 4 people working in a pole arm formation. Yeah, you wouldn't be carrying the pike. Sable says, I've always found it vaguely ironic how much detail D&D puts into its weapons when not much of the damage you deal with them isn't actually based on the when much of the damage you deal with them isn't actually based on the weapon's damage die. Although it was better in 3.5 where you had crit ranges and different damage multipliers. Haven't we already talked about the pronouncing, at least we were talking about pronouncing armor as if they were French, as if they were English words. So, bardiche. The word bardiche is the corrupted spelling of, well, there we go. It's a corrupted spelling of, well, I would call that berdish. Berdysh. The berdish, which is a Russian term, it says. I didn't know that. Is an effect on elongated elongated battle axe with a large, narrow, curved axe head measuring 24 to 32 inches long, mounted on a pole 5 to 8 feet long. The upper part of the head can be used for thrusting, while the lower part is used to form a langet. A langet is an iron strap used to increase the strength of the head and to protect the most exposed part of the weapon blows. A berdish requires more room to wield than a pike or spear, but the weapon has a unique function. It can be used as a gun rest. The smaller berdish has 2 rings for attaching to a shoulder strap. The arrangement is popular among horsemen. They talk about room to wield them too, but that doesn't really ever come up a lot in D&D. I mean, as far as, okay, we're in a dungeon, we're in a hallway or whatever, okay, but beyond that level, I don't see that really coming up all that much. So the Bec de Corbin, also called the Bec de Falcon, the names means crow's beak or falcon's beak, respectively. The pole weapon has a hook much like a bird's beak and is ideal for cutting open armor like some great can opener. The weapon also has a hammer or axe side that delivers a good solid hit. I like the hammer side. I like the Bec de Corbin because I'm a fan of the Warhammer. I like Warhammers. So putting a Warhammer on a pole arm sounds like a good idea to me. This is a highly specialized weapon designed for the purposes of cutting armor and striking the now unarmored victim with the other side of the weapon. The pole shaft is 8 feet long. The bill guisame. Is that right? Also known simply as the bill, this weapon is derived from an agricultural tool, the bill and hook. All throughout its years of use, the bill's head went through many changes. Its most common head form is a sharp spike with a sturdy hook, whose inside and outside edges were sharpened, and a cutting blade reminiscent of a cleaver. The pole length ranges around 8 feet. So here's what they're calling the bill. The bardiche. The falchard. Or how shall I pronounce it? Depending, this one over here. Which they don't actually have the scythe. Didn't they have war scythe? I guess they didn't have war scythe in here. Developed from the common agricultural sickle or scythe, the falchard consists of a long, curving blade with a large, pointed head and a fluke, a small, curved hook found on many pole arms. The head is mounted on a wooden pole. The other blade says this may be my Japanese training. If you can use a pole, but if you use a pole arm, aren't you supposed to carry a sword of some kind just in case? I suppose if you can afford one. Sable says I've been obsessed with the hand gizame, ever since reading Men of Iron when I was a child, but I have not been able to find any authoritative source that verifies its historicity. So they're saying the Falchard is the type of scythe. Then we've also got this combination with a fork right here. This term denotes a Falchard with a fluke attached. The fluke was added in order to prove the weapon's thrusting capability. They're calling that. They said that a fluke up here was a small curved hook found on many pole arms, whereas this is kind of a specialized kind of thing over here. And to prove the weapon's thrusting capability, but the effort was fruitless, still a bulky weapon requiring much space to be wielded efficiently. A glaive. Here we have the glaive. Effectively, a sword on a staff. The glaive is a pole weapon with a large head shaped like a knife or sword mounted in an 8 or 10 foot long shaft. The blade usually turns outward in order to increase the cutting area. Some glaives are fitted with flukes. Overall, the glaive's damage potential is not spectacular. Oh, really? But its long reach makes up for this. It effectively takes a normal sword blade and gives it great reach. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be hit with a glaive. When I think of hitting someone with a glaive, I don't think about not spectacular damage ratings. I think about something particularly gruesome that might happen to them. All these combinations, the glaive gizame volge. See, I like armor as damage reduction as well. Well, all right, let's go. That's on. By far the oldest, so the halberd, it says, by far the oldest and most used pole arm, the halberd consists of a cleaver-like axe blade mounted on a staff averaging 6 feet in length. The axe blade is balanced at the rear with a fluke and surmounted by a sharp spike, usually of quadrangle design. The fluke is sometimes replaced by a hook used to dismount cavalry. A halberd can best be described as a cross between a spear and an axe. Although a halberd's main function is to dismount cavalry, it may be employed as a thrusting weapon and a cutting weapon. It's not a fast weapon, though, compared to other pole arms. Still, it does more damage to man-sized opponents than other pole arms. So we got more information. Did it specifically talk about the Lucerne hammer? The Lucerne hammer is a hammer head with a spike at its rear, mounted on a long pole arm reaching as much as 10 feet in length. In some cases, the end is fitted with a spike to keep the enemy soldiers at bay. It's one of the heaviest pole arms and is rather slow. The entire weapon is made out of steel, including the pole. That doesn't look like what they're illustrating here. I didn't see a great difference in the Lucerne. I thought that the main difference between the Lucerne hammer and a Bec de Corbin was length. So yeah, who actually uses them? There's so much space dedicated to them, right? That's what I was saying. There's so much space dedicated to them, and they aren't used. And when they are used, it's something like a spear, and you don't need all of the extra stuff. Here's our in-universe text. Taken as an entire weapon group, pole arms are a useful weapon specifically in an outdoor setting. Their advantages include good reach, excellent defensive capability, especially if you're not using rules for reach, too. I mean, if you're not using that, pole arms lose some of their, or a main part of their appeal anyway. Among the drawbacks of pole arms as a whole are the amount of room needed to wield them, their diminished usefulness in close quarters melee, their overall slowness, and their encumbrance. Also, with so many polearm types to choose from, it's unlikely that a group of adventurers all have the same weapon or that everyone in the group will want a polearm of any sort in the first place. Polearms are more effective if several people have them. A single adventurer wielding an halberd is not going to stop a row of 4 charging orcs. Remember the advice given earlier and try to coordinate polearm choices before going off to an adventure. Staff, sap, scourge, sickle. The sickle is a farming instrument consisting of a crescent-shaped blade mounted on a short handle. It's used in combat primarily by peasants or adventurers who have no weapon and forced to make do with whatever they can. But it does say, of course, druids favor the sickle due to the strong association with agriculture. Golden sickles are used to harvest mistletoe as components for druid spells. Slings. Oh, spear is over here. Slings and staff slings. We got the killing of Goliath here for the instance of the sling. Lynn says, I use a homebrew armor system which uses a dice pool. The damage reduction is probabilistic. Better armors have more dice in the pool. Sable says, I'm a big fan of the 13. We haven't looked at 13H yet. That's still on that list. The actual weapon type is pure flavor, and your damage is determined by your class. Either go simulationist like 3.5 or go narrativist like 13th Age. Sable says, I love the crunch. It doesn't, as long as it doesn't slow things down. There's a lot to be said for speed, especially with modern day gaming groups. Yeah, slings. Let's see what it says about slings. Let's go to slings because of that reason. Well, we have staff sling. Do we have just sling? Oh, sling right over here. So we do have just sling here. Slings have existed since the beginning of recorded history. The basic sling consists of a leather or fabric strap with a pouch for holding the missile. The weapon is held in both hands by the strap and twirled around the wielder's head. When top speed is attained, the missile is launched by releasing one of the strap's ends. The sling is a cheap weapon and easy to make. Thus, it is common among peasants, especially since it would make a good hunting weapon. The sling's missile is either a smooth, rounded stone or a ball of lead. While stones are easier to find, most shallow streams have an abundance of smooth stones. The lead bullet causes more damage and flies further than the stone. A sling's projectile is capable of producing severe bruising and even broken bones against a man or his mount. Against armor, however, the sling loses much of its effectiveness. Halflings are known to be quite good at using the sling and is a common weapon among members of that race. Slings are a fine missile weapon for thieves since the weapon is easily concealed and quiet. Actually, it's not a bad proficiency for anyone to pick up since it's making a sling and finding ammunition is easy. The sling's missiles have good range. If using a sling out of doors, one never lacks for ammunition, though lead bullets fly farther and cause more damage. That's Ariane, the professional cat purse. It says slings were heavily used by peoples living around the Mediterranean basin. The Romans did not assign slings to their soldiers, but allowed their auxiliary troops to use them. The sling was used during the Middle Ages, and slingers are depicted on the Bayeux tapestry, not as soldiers, but as hunters. Where's some stats? Here's some stats. The master weapons chart right here. So sling, cheap. They inflict the lead bullet inflicts 1d4 plus 1 damage, and the stone inflicts 1d4 damage against small and medium creatures. It's difficult to have in a game the sling and also be able to take out Goliath with it. Do they deal with bolas in this book? Did we skip Ebola? They were not Ebola, but skip bola. Yep, bola right over here. Yeah, so bola was in here. The bola is a missile of prehistoric origins. Currently, it is still used by Arctic tribes and by savages who dwell on temperate plains. The main function of the bola is to provide a hunter with a good missile weapon that will catch the prey off guard and entangle it so as to make escape impossible. The bola is basically a leather strap or straps with weights fastened at the ends, although there are many variations to the design. Arctic bolas are generally used for hunting birds. The bola may have 4, 6, or 10 weights made of walrus, ivory, or bone. The weights are egg-shaped, spherical, or carved in the likenesses of animals. All the straps are cords joined together to make a sort of handle. The thrower grasps the handle, jerks back the strand to straighten them, whirls the bola over their head, and releases them. Each bola strand is about 28 inches long, and each weighs about 2 inches, and each weight is about 2 inches in diameter. The two bolas are called somalis. Triple bolas are called achokos. Achicos. Somebody else can tell me how to pronounce those, I'm sure. I didn't know there was a difference, I'm sure, in the first 2 and 3. Temperate plain bolas are usually twice as large and consist of a single leather thong with a leather-covered stone at each end. Often a second cord is fastened to the center of the first cord with a small weight attached to this end. This weight is held by the thrower. This version of the bola can bring down a man-sized target. When a bola hits, the victim is held fast and must take a round to make a strength check to get free. Failure means the bola is holding them fast. So when a bola hits, the victim is held fast. Again, that sounds pretty good. When a bola hits, the victim is held fast and must take a round to make a strength check in order to get free. Failure, so it's not as good as the man catcher, but it does say that you're held if it hits. Failure means the bolas are still holding you fast. If an attacker makes a called shot to the target's legs and succeeds, the bolas wrap themselves tightly around the victim's legs and prevent further movement. There's nothing you can do. They make a called shot to the leg. The target must make a dexterity check in order to not fall down, incurring a -3 penalty if the victim was moving when the bolas hit. If the attacker succeeds a called shot to the victim's arms, the bolas wrap themselves tightly around his torso, preventing the victim from using the weapon or employing the protection of his shield until he frees himself. And in this case, strength checks are made at -2 penalty due to lack of leverage. A successful called shot to the victim's head wraps the bolas around the neck, strangling him, unless the character is wearing a great helm or closed-faced helm. The bolas cause normal damage on the round in which they hit, then an additional D3 points of strangulation damage. Each round, the bolas are still in place. Barkon, the bounty hunter, says, this is a good weapon to trip someone up and in case you want to take an opponent alive. But you got to make sure you got enough room to give the bola a good swing. Bolas only work outside or in large rooms. They work good if you're on horseback. I think let's do staff sling, then we'll save swords for tomorrow. I'm sure that'll be a deep discussion. Staff sling, also known as a fustibolus. The staff sling consists of a wooden rod, 3 or 4 feet in length, with a sling attached to one end. The rod is used to increase the range that a heavy object can be thrown by enabling the slinger to twirl the sling harder. This is not meant to increase the distance of the average sling bullet. In fact, it has poorer range for stones and bullets. An optional form of ammunition is the stink pot, a clay vessel filled with a burning sulfur or quicklime. It's then considered a grenade-like weapon and is the subject of combat rules found in Chapter 9 of the Player's Handbook. For range, the stink pot has a range of 20 feet, medium range of 40 feet, and long range of 60 feet. When the stink pot breaks, everyone in a 20-foot diameter circle who does not leave the area within 1 round must save versus poison or be unable to attack or move at greater than half their movement rate. Those who save successfully at a -2 penalty those who save successfully attack at a -2 penalty due to nausea and watering eyes. The effect lasts as long as the subject remains in the area and for 1d4 rounds thereafter. The stink cloud lasts only for 1d3 plus 1 rounds, then dissipates. Optionally, stink pots in underground settings may give off clouds that last 1d6 plus 1 rounds due to the lack of open air. Due to the trajectory of that a staff sling gives a missile, it cannot be fired at short-range targets. It has less range than a sling and is a slower weapon, but the staff sling can hurl a heavier object. In-universe text says, anyone who gets a staff sling in the hope of seeing his sling bullets fly into the next kingdom is in for a rude shock. The weapon is only good for hurling large loads a healthy distance. The sling pot idea is perhaps the best way to get the most use out of these slings. One thing's for sure, as much as halflings like slings, you'll rarely catch one using this thing, says Severin, the master swordsman. There's its illustration. All right. Yeah, Sable says, yeah, that's stupid. The sling should be at minimum the same as crossbow damage. In my game, move my microphone. The slings, I rate the slings as a martial class weapon with the same damage as a heavy crossbow. No, never heard those words. Okay, so I'm glad I'm glad I wasn't the only one. I think for the different types of bolas. Yeah, they seem pretty good. I think it's because you're talking about strangling here. According to the rules, anything that that seems to be a hack of the basic combat rules, because it doesn't seem like Dungeons and Dragons AD&D was designed for that in the beginning. And so anything that comes along later and tries to hack it, like, oh, wouldn't the bola be great at tripping you up or strangling you or something, doesn't seem to integrate well with the rules. Yeah, Daniel says, listen, these people didn't throw weapons at each other to find out what would happen. They just thought it sounded cool. Yeah, there was a distinct lack of using weapons against one another, which we do a lot more now on YouTube. Yeah, some of this book is great, and some of it just makes no common sense. And some of it's terrible. All right. Well, I'm going to get back to writing. I have enjoyed it. This was great. Great discussion, as always. Have a wonderful day. Go forth, be creative, defeat resistance, defeat resistance, defeat resistance. Be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later, everybody.